You know, there's something I want to share with you today that might sound unusual in a world that constantly tells us to speak up, to be heard, to make our presence known, to announce everything we're doing. But I believe this might be one of the most powerful transformations you can make in your life. And what is it? It's the art of focusing on yourself and staying silent. Not silent in a way that you become invisible or irrelevant. Not silent in a way that you never speak or never share, but silent in a very specific, very intentional, very powerful way that allows you to channel all your energy into becoming rather than performing, into building rather than announcing, into growing rather than showing. Let me tell you a story. There were two farmers who lived next to each other. Both had the same size land, the same quality of soil, the same access to water. At the beginning of the planting season, the first farmer was very busy. He went around the village telling everyone about his plans. He talked about which crops he was going to plant, how much yield he expected, how much money he was going to make. He posted pictures on social media of his field, of his seeds, of his tools. He invited people to come and see his preparations. He spent hours every day talking to neighbors about his strategy, his techniques, his predictions for the harvest. He was very visible, very vocal, very present in everyone's awareness. The second farmer was different. At the beginning of the season, he quietly bought his seeds, prepared his land, and started planting. He didn't announce his plans to the village. He didn't post about his progress. He didn't spend time talking about what he was going to do. Instead, he spent that time actually doing it. Every morning, he woke up early and worked in his field. He watered, he weeded, he protected his crops from pests. He adjusted his approach based on what he observed. He was so focused on the work itself that he had no time or energy left for talking about the work. The village barely saw him. They didn't know what he was planting or how it was going. He was silent. Months passed. The harvest season arrived. The first farmer, despite all his talking, despite all his planning, despite all his announcements, had a modest harvest. Not terrible, but nothing special. Why? Why? Because he had spent so much energy talking about farming that he had less energy for actually farming. He had been so concerned with what people thought about his plans that he kept changing his approach based on their opinions. He had been so focused on appearing like a successful farmer that he forgot to actually be a successful farmer. The second farmer, the silent one, had an abundant harvest. His fields were overflowing. The quality was exceptional. The quantity exceeded all expectations. And when people asked him, "How did you do this? Why didn't you tell us about your techniques?" he simply smiled and said, "I didn't have time to talk about what I was doing. I was too busy actually doing it." This story, my friends, contains a profound truth that most people miss their entire lives. The energy you spend talking about what you're doing is energy you're not spending on actually doing it. The time you spend seeking validation for your journey is time you're not spending on walking the journey. The focus you give to managing your image is focus you're taking away from building your substance. And in a world that constantly demands your attention, your opinion, your update, your status, choosing to focus on yourself and stay silent is not just wise, it's revolutionary. Now let me be very clear about what I mean by focusing on yourself and staying silent, because this can be misunderstood. I'm not telling you to become selfish, to stop caring about others, to isolate yourself from the world, to never speak or share or contribute. That's not what this is about. What I'm talking about is a deliberate shift in where you place your primary attention and energy. Instead of being constantly outward focused, concerned with what others are doing, what others are thinking, what others are achieving, you become primarily inward focused, concerned with your own growth, your own development, your own journey. Instead of feeling compelled to announce every step you take, every lesson you learn, every challenge you face, you learn to move through life with quiet confidence, letting your results speak instead of your announcements. So let's break this down. What does it actually mean to focus on yourself? It means you stop comparing. This is perhaps one of the hardest but most liberating things you can do. We live in a world that encourages constant comparison. Social media is essentially a comparison machine. Everyone is showing you their highlight reel, their best moments, their successes, their achievements. And if you're not careful, you spend your entire life measuring yourself against other people's carefully curated images. Am I as successful as them? Am I as happy as they appear? Am I achieving as much? Do I have as much? And this comparison, it's poison. It's absolute poison to your peace of mind and to your progress. Because here's what happens when you're constantly comparing yourself to others. You're running someone else's race. You're measuring your chapter 1 against their chapter 20. You're comparing your behind the scenes with their highlight reel. And you always come up short because you're not seeing the full picture of their journey. You don't see their struggles, their failures, their doubts, their dark dainties. You only see what they choose to show. And so you feel inadequate. You feel like you're falling behind. You feel like you're not enough. And all of this takes your focus away from the only thing that actually matters, which is your own path, your own progress, your own journey. When you focus on yourself, you stop looking sideways at what everyone else is doing, and you start looking forward at where you're going. You stop measuring your success against others, and you start measuring it against yourself. Am I better today than I was yesterday? Am I growing? Am I learning? Am I moving forward? These are the only comparisons that matter, because the only person you're competing with is the person you were yesterday. Everyone else is on their own journey, with their own timing, their own lessons, their own path. Your job is not to keep up with them. Your job is to keep growing into who you're meant to be. Focusing on yourself also means you take radical responsibility for your life. You stop blaming. You stop making excuses. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop pointing fingers at circumstances, at other people, at your past, at the economy, at the system, at anything external. Not because those things don't have an impact. They do. Not because life is always fair. It's not. But because blame, no matter how justified, is powerless. Blame keeps you stuck. Blame makes you a victim. And victims don't grow. Victims don't transform. Victims don't create the lives they want. When you focus on yourself, you ask a different question. Not whose fault is this, but what can I do about this? Not why did this happen to me, but what can I learn from this? Not who's responsible for fixing this, but how can I respond to this in a way that moves me forward? This shift from blame to responsibility, from victim to creator, this is where your power lives. Because you can't control what happens to you, but you can absolutely control how you respond. And when you focus all your energy on your response, on your choices, on your actions, on your growth, you become unstoppable. Focusing on yourself also means you protect your energy fiercely. You become very selective about what you give your attention to. You realize that your attention is your most valuable resource. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And if your attention is constantly scattered, constantly pulled in different directions by social media, by news, by gossip, by drama, by other people's problems, by things you cannot control, then your energy is scattered too. You end up exhausted, but having accomplished nothing meaningful. But when you focus on yourself, you create boundaries. You say no to things that don't serve your growth. You limit time-wasting activities. You stop consuming endless content that adds no value to your life. You stop participating in conversations that drain you. You stop giving your energy to situations and people that take without giving back. This isn't selfish. This is self-preservation. This is wisdom, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot help others if you're depleted. You cannot contribute to the world if you've given away all your energy to things that don't matter. Now let's talk about staying silent. And this is where many people misunderstand. Staying silent doesn't mean you never speak. It means you speak with intention and purpose, not compulsively or to feed your ego. It means you're not constantly announcing what you're doing, what you're planning, what you're thinking, what you're achieving. You move through life like that second farmer, working quietly, building steadily, growing consistently, without needing everyone to know about it. Why is silence so powerful? First, silence protects your energy and your ideas. When you announce your plans before you've executed them, several things happen, and none of them are good. Your brain gets a dopamine hit from people's positive responses to your announcement. You feel accomplished even though you haven't actually done anything yet. This premature reward reduces your motivation to do the actual work. Why? Because your brain has already gotten the satisfaction it was seeking. Second, when you announce your plans, you invite opinions, you invite doubt, you invite skepticism. People will tell you all the reasons it won't work. They'll point out obstacles you hadn't considered. They'll share stories of others who tried and failed. And even if they mean well, even if they think they're being helpful, what they're actually doing is planting seeds of doubt in your mind. Seeds that will grow into hesitation, into second guessing, into fear. And suddenly something you were excited about, something you felt clear about, becomes clouded with uncertainty. Silence protects you from all of this. When you work in silence, when you build in private, when you grow without announcing every step, you keep your energy contained. You keep your motivation pure. You keep your vision clear. You're not diluting your power by spreading it across hundreds of conversations about what you're going to do. You're concentrating that power into actually doing it. There's a beautiful principle in physics. It says that pressure is force applied over a small area. The smaller the area, the greater the pressure. Think about a nail. A nail can pierce through wood, not because it has tremendous force behind it, but because all the force is concentrated on a tiny point. But if you tried to push a flat piece of metal through wood with the same force, it wouldn't work because the force is spread across a larger area. Your energy works the same way. When you scatter your energy by talking about your plans to everyone, by seeking validation from multiple sources, by explaining and defending and discussing your every move, you're spreading your force across a large area. You create no pressure. You pierce through nothing. But when you contain your energy through silence, when you focus all of it on the actual work, on the actual execution, you create tremendous pressure. You pierce through obstacles. You break through barriers. You achieve what seemed impossible. Staying silent also means you're not reactive. In a world full of noise, full of opinions, full of provocation, staying silent is a form of power. Someone criticizes you, and instead of immediately defending yourself, you stay silent. You evaluate whether the criticism has merit. If it does, you learn from it quietly and adjust. If it doesn't, you dismiss it and move on. You don't engage in arguments that go nowhere. You don't waste energy proving yourself to people who have already made up their minds. You don't participate in drama that serves no purpose except to drain everyone involved. This kind of silence, this measured response, this refusal to be pulled into every conflict, it's a sign of tremendous inner strength. Weak people react to everything. They feel compelled to respond to every comment, every criticism, every provocation. They need to have the last word. They need to defend themselves constantly. But strong people, people who are focused on themselves and their own growth, they know that not everything deserves a response. They know that silence is often the most powerful response. They know that the best revenge is not engaging at all, but simply continuing to grow and succeed while others waste their energy on negativity. When you're not constantly talking about your life, when you're not constantly updati, NG everyone on your every thought and feeling, you create a sacred private space, a space where you can process your experiences without external input, a space where you can feel your feelings without performing them, a space where you can think your thoughts without immediately broadcasting them. This private space, this silence, it's where real growth happens. It's where you integrate your experiences. It's where you develop your own understanding. It's where you become yourself, rather than a reflection of everyone else's opinions and expectations. And here's something beautiful that happens when you focus on yourself and stay silent. You become mysterious, and mystery is magnetic. When you're not constantly oversharing, when you're not announcing every detail of your life, when you're not seeking attention and validation, people become curious about you. They wonder what you're up to. They notice your progress, even though you didn't announce it. They see your growth, even though you didn't post about it. And they respect you more because you clearly don't need their validation. You're not performing for an audience. You're simply being and becoming. Think about the people you most respect and admire. Are they the ones who are constantly talking about themselves, constantly seeking attention, constantly announcing their every move? Or are they the ones who move quietly, who speak when they have something meaningful to say, who let their work and their character speak for them? It's almost always the latter, because there's dignity in silence. There's strength in self-focus. There's power in not needing external validation. But I want to address something important. Some of you might be thinking, but isn't this lonely? If I focus on myself and stay silent, won't I be isolated? Won't I lose connections? And I understand this concern. But here's what you need to understand. There's a profound difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is feeling alone and wishing you weren't. Solitude is choosing to be with yourself because you recognize its value. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you're not cutting yourself off from meaningful connections. You're actually creating space for deeper, more authentic connections because you're no longer scattering your energy across surface-level interactions with everyone. You're no longer performing for an audience. You're being genuine, and in that genuineness, in that authenticity, you attract people who resonate with the real you, not the performed you. You build fewer relationships, but they're deeper. You have fewer conversations, but they're more meaningful. You share less with more people and more with fewer people. And this creates a richness in your social life that breath alone could never provide. Also, when you're focused on yourself, when you're growing and developing and building, you actually become more interesting, more valuable, more capable of contributing to others. Think about it. If you spend all your time talking about what you're going to do but never doing it, what do you have to offer others? But if you spend your time actually doing, actually learning, actually growing, actually building, then when you do speak, when you do contribute, you have substance, you have real experience, you have actual value to offer. You become someone worth listening to, not because you talk the most, but because when you do talk, it matters. Let me share with you what happens when you commit to this path, when you truly focus on yourself and embrace silence. In the beginning, it's uncomfortable. You feel the urge to share, to announce, to seek validation. You see others posting about their lives, and you feel like you are missing out. You want people to know what you're working on, what you are achieving. But you resist, you stay focused, you stay silent, you keep building, and slowly something shifts. You notice that you have more energy because you're not spending it on managing your image. You notice that you're making faster progress because you're not distracted by everyone else's journey. You notice that you're more at peace because you're not constantly comparing yourself to others. You notice that your confidence grows from within rather than depending on external validation. You become your own anchor rather than being tossed around by other people's opinions. Months pass, maybe a year, and the results start to show. Not because you announce them, but because results have a way of speaking for themselves. People notice you've changed. They notice you've grown. They notice you've achieved things. And they're surprised because they didn't see it coming. You weren't posting about it, you weren't talking about it, you were just doing it. And now it's undeniable. And here's what's beautiful. The success you achieve through focused silence, through